All right, now that we know what D&D is, and we've seen a very simple example of how to play it, now we're going to dive into how to actually start playing. We're going to start with the manuals, but there's a little bit of history needed to know about the company before we go into the manuals themselves. I promise this is important. So Dungeons & Dragons was officially published in 1974. It's been over 50 years, so naturally there's going to be some changes to the rules and guidelines. As of filming this video, we are currently on the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. It's probably the most popular. I don't know if social media has an impact on that or whatever, but we're on the 5th edition. Unless you really want to, you don't need to know about the previous versions unless you want to play those versions. So I'm just going to focus on the 5th edition. That's the current one we're playing, so that's the one we need to focus on. The 5th version of Dungeons & Dragons was starting to be published in 2012. It's when they started that process. They had a lot of demos and thoughts with the community, whatever. It was officially released in 2014. Now, why is this important to understand the manuals? My goodness, I'm going to try and explain this simply, but it does get a little complicated. This is important because when you look for manuals online, Facebook Marketplace, whatever, you have to pay attention to the version of the manual. You might find a manual that's version 4, but you want the 5th edition. The reason the versions are important is because the way you build the world with the physical numbers and the math is different. They're on different scales. If you build your monsters from 4th edition and your characters from 5th edition, one of them is gonna have a real hard time. I don't know the actual math, but the design of the systems and the mechanics and the way things are calculated are different. So you want it to be very consistent, stick with one version of the game. Like I said before, latest version is 5e or 5th edition 5e. We abbreviate everything in this game. because the latest version is 5e, that's what we're gonna focus on. In the world of tabletop games, whenever you have one like D&D, there are lots of books and manuals and instructions. There's only 3 that you need. Those are called the core 3. But I'm explaining the differences so you can recognize when you're doing your research, you'll be like,
oh, that's what he was talking about. That's not what I want.
Some of the books and manuals are pre-written scenarios and adventures. So the dungeon master doesn't have to make up his own world. He can buy a campaign. He can buy a fully fleshed out game. It already has people you run into, monsters you fight, treasure chests with treasure in them. All the work is done for you. A lot of the manuals you'll see are those. They're called campaigns or adventures. Some of the other manuals you'll see are additions to the rules or corrections or optional things for your characters. Those are optional, you don't need them. We're starting simple, ignore both of those. What we want to focus on are the 3 core books. So when you're starting out fresh for D&D, there's 2 ways to approach these. You could buy the manuals, go through them and play, or you can buy a starter pack. Starter packs are interesting. They're almost like a demo to the game. Very often they include a watered down version of the rules that are a lot more simple, easier to read, almost like in a pamphlet. They'll include some character sheets, some characters that are already designed for you, and a small little story for you to play through. It's almost like a little bit of everything. It's a demo of the game. This is really good if you're very hesitant about whether or not you want to spend a lot of money on the manuals. These things are expensive. They're like $60. You can find older, used ones maybe for cheaper, but a lot of versions of the game don't really lower their prices. They hold their value for a long time. So these starter packs can be nice. There's a few pros and cons to them in my opinion. I am pretty biased. I don't like starter packs. I like having a manual where I can flip through all the rules I need. I can go through, I like that. For me, I don't like starter packs because they don't include everything. There's some situations or scenarios that you'll run into. Maybe that story that you play through is really short and it leaves you wanting more. Good, that's what they're designed for. But here's the problem. Even if you buy a starter pack, you still have to buy everything else full price. There's no discount on that. So if you like the starter pack and you want to get into it, you still have to pay $60 for a full book or whatever pricing it is, depending on where you buy and what deal is going on, whatever. You still have to buy full price. It's like paying for a demo of a video game, playing through, being like, wow, that was fun. And then you have to go buy the full game anyway. Usually the demo is free, or they have a package where if you have the demo, then there's a discount, whatever. But because these are physical books, it doesn't work like that. That being said, as biased as I am against starter packs, I've learned that there's a lot more pros to them. Some of them do include a full manual with a small adventure and characters and a few dice you need. And that would still be cheaper than buying the full manual and all those pieces together. right? And so just depending on the starter pack, you do your research, see what it has, but just be aware that some of them might not include everything. Some might include full manuals. Whew, that was a lot. So those are starter packs. Now let's get into the manuals. There are 3 main manuals that are most often used in Dungeons and Dragons. These are often called the core manuals. And they're right here. Whoa. Look at these suckers, dude. These things are so big. They're thick. But that's okay, I'm gonna simply go through them. Number 1 is the Player's Handbook. This is the foundation of D&D. This is literally the rule book. In here is a complete guide of all the rules, how to adventure, how to run combats, simple rules for DMs to run the game. It comes with building a character in detail, and it even comes with some monsters you can fight at the end of the book. It is so nice. You could research all the YouTube videos you want. Thanks, by the way. Thanks for coming here. Appreciate it. But at the end of the day, this is your primary resource for D&D. Regardless of how many YouTube videos you watch, this is the written rule book right here. It looks intimidating. Trust me, I know. My very first experience playing D&D sucked and I hated the game. I'm so thankful that one of my friends convinced me to try again. You know who you are. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. But it's very thick, but it's not as complicated as you think. All 3 of the core manuals in Dungeons and Dragons are split up into sections, and I'll briefly explain what those sections are. So I'm going to show you through the thickness of the book what each section is. This is the rules section right here. It's like 35 pages. Yeah, that's still a lot, but a lot of them are pictures and examples of the rules they have, which is so nice. They'll explain something, then they'll be like, here's an example, and they'll kind of write it out. That's it. It's pretty thin compared to the rest of it. So now you're probably wondering, what's the rest of this? One of the hardest parts about D&D is understanding your character when you're brand new. There's a lot of little rules and things about characters, but that's what the next section is about. In my first video, I explained that when you build a character, you have a race. Are you an elf, dwarf, human? And then you have a class, like a profession. Are you a wizard? Are you a sneaky guy? Are you a knight in shining armor on the front lines? This book goes over that. This much of the book, you can see that's probably just under half of the book is just about the class of your character. When you build a character, you have to think a lot about the profession. If you're a wizard, there's a lot of details about being a wizard, and it's very different than being a knight in shining armor. That's what this section of the book explains. It is very thick, but it is divided into 12 parts. So all you really need to do is find a summary of those parts, and then you can skip 11 of those. So when you build a character, okay, we got a lot of the book to cover. Oh, look, do I want to be a barbarian, someone who's fighting on the front lines in battle, screaming my head off with an axe in my hand? Do I want to be a bard, a performer who plays music? All these things, you can read about them in these descriptions and find out pretty quickly, oh, that doesn't sound interesting, that doesn't, let's try this one. And then you can flip to that spot, and then you only have like 5 pages of creating a character instead of a third of the book. So when you're building a character, then we have this little section here. This is the background of your character. Basically, this is just like, oh, were you an old hermit living on a mountain? Were you a soldier who was enlisted? Are you coming from a rich family? It's just the background. And again, this is split into different sections. You can pretty quickly decide which one you want. It helps a lot if you have an idea of a character in mind. So right off the bat, if I'm like, I want to be a samurai, immediately I know I'm not going to be a magical wizard. I'm probably going to have a soldier background. The process of making a character can be quick, but again, we'll cover that in a different video. But yeah, that small section here is just the origins, the background of your character. The next section, also pretty thin, is your equipment in the game. The kinds of weapons you can use, the armor you can find. If you go to a store, what kind of common items do they have? Pretty small. The rest of this book, for the most part, is all spells for magic users. When I first started playing D&D, I didn't want to touch magic at all. I've been playing for quite a while, 8, 9 years, almost 10 years, and I still don't want to touch the spells. No, I'm just kidding. But basically it's a glossary. Because this book is supposed to include everything you need, if you have a magic character, of course you're going to need all the magic spells. You do not need to be familiar with every single one of the spells. You don't need to read this book word for word. It's kind of like a use as needed book. You read that first little thin part of rules, and then you build a character. You don't need to go through every single character class and race and background, but you can look at a list and be like, oh, that looks cool, let's try that. As you try new things as you play, you'll find out what you like, what you don't like, and you'll slowly get familiar with the book. But don't be intimidated by its size. You don't need to read every word of it, and it's designed to be like that. Other than the spells at the very back of the book, it just has an example of monsters you could run into It has common things like, oh, a duck, a horse, a bird, a dog, a cat. Or it has like, oh, an imp or a low-level demon. Or it has like, oh, a little pseudo-dragon you can run into. It has some wolves, a fairy. Beyond those examples, you have the rules glossary. This is amazing. Even if you read through those pages in the very beginning that were really small about all the rules and you're still kind of confused, the glossary is where I spend most of my time when I'm DMing. I've played this game for 10 years, but I still run into situations where I'm like, ooh, remind me what that is, or how does that work again? I can just quickly look it up like, oh, deafened. Oh yeah, you can't hear because someone shot a lightning bolt and hit you in the face, and it was so loud you can't hear anymore, you're deafened. Things like that. That's the player manual. So it looks thick, but it's cut into sections. The majority of it is building a character. It's pretty simple. All you need is this and some dice, and you can start playing D&D. Manual numero dos. That's 2 in Spanish if you didn't know. Is the Dungeon Master... That's the player's handbook again. It just had a different fancy cover. The Dungeon Master's Guide totally didn't just whip out another player handbook. This is optional. This is for the Dungeon Master. If they want to get super detailed and build their own world with every detail, this is what you want. This one gets a lot more complicated, but it's great if you want to learn how to build a story. I dabble in writing. I used to be an aspiring author, and I've tried writing a lot of books and creating worlds just in my mind, just for fun. I've even typed out a lot of them, but this opened my eyes to a lot of factors and variables I never considered. The majority of the Dungeon Master's Guide is actually a list of magic items that's in the universe of D&D. So like you can literally flip to like, oh, your character finds a dancing sword. What is that? Instead of making up a magical item, there's a list here. A very large list. So although this book is also intimidating, half of it is just a list of magical items. So it's really like a third of the size. The first part is about building a world, the details you need to know. So if you're really into storytelling and you want those details, highly recommend the Dungeon Master's Guide. It is so fun. I have the newer manual of the 5th edition, and I'll explain that in a second. But the newer manual includes a set world in Dungeons & Dragons called Greyhawk. Greyhawk is an actual place in the world of D&D if you play through the actual manuals and stories that they have produced as a company. Greyhawk is an actual city, and this Dungeon Master's Guide gives you that setting. It gives you the king, the shops you can run into. It has maps for your characters. Really cool resource. If you're concerned about budget, you don't have to grab it. But if you've saved a little bit and you want more in depth, highly recommend Dungeon Master's Guide. There's a reason it's one of the 3 core manuals. It's so good and so useful. Numero 3, the Monster Manual. I am shocked and surprised at how amazing and useful this is. In essence, it's a list of monsters. That's literally all it is. You have a monster here. Oh, it's a fire giant. It tells you the armor it wears, the weapon it has. This is to make the DM's job a lot easier. If your party is adventuring in the woods, what creatures are they going to run into? This manual is all for that. I could end it there, but I'm going to explain why I found this manual mind-blowing. Not only does it give a description of the stats or the numbers of the creatures and things you run into, it gives a description of their background and where your party might run into them. There's a reason this is amazing. I'm going to show you an example. A kobold is a very iconic Dungeons & Dragons enemy. It's basically a small humanoid dragon. It looks like a dragon, but it's like a human. It walks on 2 legs, has like a lizard-like snout, right? It's basically a dragon person. This is why this is so cool. A brand new DM who is simple and doesn't care about building the story super in depth and just wants to have fun, he might throw this at you. He'll look and be like,
Oh, a kobold. That's good. So your party is adventuring in the woods. You hear a snapping of a twig. 3 kobolds run out. All right, let's fight.
So then you guys fight and you fight the kobolds, done. Yeah, loot them, you find some gold, cool. That's something maybe a new DM will do. An experienced dungeon master with experienced players, it goes deeper. Kobolds, cowardly cousins of chromatic dragons. It's just a type of dragon. Kobolds serve draconic overlords as warriors and servants. Okay, so it's given me a history lesson of this fictional monster. Why do we care? An experienced DM would say the exact same thing.
You're walking in the woods, you hear a snap of a twig. 3 kobolds come out.
Immediately, it means so much more. An experienced player would know, wait, kobolds are servants of dragons, evil dragons. That means there must be an evil dragon somewhere in the land awakening, and it's sending its servants out to hunt people. Immediately, that just added so much more to the plot. This book includes so much more. It will tell you if a monster is found in the desert versus the woods. A normal DM, it doesn't matter. Put a desert monster in the woods, have them fight it. Doesn't matter. But this is such an easy way to make your story so much more in depth. That, and it literally gives you over 150 different monsters you can fight. I mean, yeah. This one came out of left field. I started looking into this and I was like, oh my gosh. It totally ups your game by so much more. It's so good. You can find these manuals online for sure, almost always at an in-person store, like a nerd store at the local mall, or there's usually stores. They're pretty common, guys. There's lots of nerds around. They're pretty easy to find. You can find other versions of D&D. You can find the 4th version, you can find the 3rd version. 5th version is the best in my opinion, because that's mainly what I've been playing. Pretty sure you can even find older copies of manuals for free online, like PDF versions. Don't know if that's legal or kosher, if you're supposed to do that. Whatever, use your best judgment. You know what's right or wrong. Do your research. So I covered the 3 manuals, but there is one last thing we need to talk about, and this is very important. During the 50th anniversary of Dungeons & Dragons, Wizards of the Coast came out and made a new manual for 5th edition. So instead of creating a 6th edition of the game with all new rules and mechanics causing everyone who's played for years to buy new stuff, all they did was update the rules and they came out with a new manual. The reason I mention this is because there is a lot of very strong opinions and controversy about the new manual. It is almost the same. Guys, seriously, it doesn't matter. You can buy the 2014 version of the player handbook with the rules, and you can use the monster manual from the 2024 version 10 years later on the 50th anniversary. They're fully compatible. They are the same. It doesn't matter. There are very minute changes. Some changes are pretty significant in gameplay, like character classes. There's a few changes there. Some of them are very simple. Some changes they made makes it a little easier for certain types of players to do certain things. They notice some players are stronger than others, so they just balance a little bit. It's basically just like a patch note. I've had a lot of friends and family very hesitant and like, oh, what is this new rules? I heard they were awful. Oh, what's all this stuff? They changed something. It really isn't that different. They just really clarified some stuff. There's a few other things, but they're so minute. Honestly, you'll hear a lot of opinions about it. Really. I bought the 50th edition. I have the 2014 version. They're fully compatible. I've studied both. I have both manuals. Trust me, they're so similar. I started reading the new one and I was like, this is the exact same. They've made it easier to understand some rules and concepts, but that's just wording. The rules and concepts are the same. Well, that's just my 2 cents. If you run into someone who's really passionate, that one's better than the other, go ahead and listen to them, see what they have to say, right? Another reason I mentioned it is for your wallet. No, this is not a sponsor. Don't worry. I'm not popular enough for a sponsor. Who do you think I am? No, it's just so when you're online looking, some price differences might be significant. The 2014 version, the 2024 version, or vice versa, whatever. If you're buying used or new, doesn't matter. What I'm saying is, if you buy the older version of one manual and the newer version of another, they can totally be played together as long as they're 5th edition. But they can be played together. That's fine. That's totally okay. It's how it's meant to be. Don't worry. That is a washdown of the manuals, right? You have the 3 main manuals. Everything else is just bonuses for fun adventures and whatnot. And out of the 3 main, you really only need the one to get started. Or you can do a starter pack, totally up to you. Next videos, we'll probably be covering dice and character building. So stick around for that. Other than that, guys, thank you for watching. I'm seriously, I'm so excited for you guys. If you've gotten this far, you're still pursuing D&D, I'm so excited. Have a good one, guys. See you in the next one. Again with the see you in the next one. What is that? This has been the Modern Bard. Thanks for watching. Have a good evening. Like, comment, and subscribe. Again with the creepiness. Man, you gotta back off of that. No. Oh, I'm wondering what you're eating. That looks good. Is that a cookie? Uh-huh. Where'd you get that?
There's one more up there.
No, it's okay. I don't need it, but it looks good. Bye.